Hey everyone, this is Stacey Lindis from Podcast PD, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of the individual host. Make sure you check out all of the other great podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com and get ready because the learning begins in 3, 2, 1.
Support for this episode of the House of EdTech comes from my awesome supporters. If you want to become an awesome supporter, go to chrisnessy.com/awesome. And from Kasey Bell of shakeuplearning.com. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nessy. The House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the House of EdTech podcast. This is episode number 110 of the show, and this is a very unique episode because some of you might be first-time listeners, because this is a special crossover episode. Not only is this episode 110 of the House of EdTech, but you're also getting a special bonus episode of the Google Teacher Tribe podcast, because my guests today are Matt Miller and Kasey Bell from the Google Teacher Tribe podcast. So this is very exciting. That's why the title of this episode is the Google Power Hour. Now, as I sit here recording this, I don't quite know yet if this is an hour worth of content, but it just seemed like a very fitting title for the episode. So if you're new to the House of EdTech, here's what I do here on my show. And, you know, you've heard me a little bit on Google Teacher Tribe before, you know, through advertisements for this podcast, because I'm also the producer of the Google Teacher Tribe podcast. For once, I am actually, killing two birds with one stone, as this episode is being released both into my feed for House of EdTech and also through the podcast feed that you're getting for Google Teacher Tribe as well. So again, very exciting to be bringing you, my voice, and obviously Matt and Kasey for Google Teacher Tribe listeners. And for those of you that are longtime listeners of the House of EdTech, obviously you know me and you've heard of Matt and Kasey, and obviously you know my role with the show. For you that's new, I do the show in a couple of different segments. I do something called the House of EdTech Thought, where I give my opinion, my take, my perspective on something related to education and or technology. And I have a House of EdTech recommendation, where I provide a recommendation for a tip, a tool, a website, something to consider doing in your classroom as soon as you're done listening to this episode, or the next time you step into your classroom. And of course, no episode of this podcast is complete without a House of EdTech VIP, which is a very special individual who I highlight kind of to get you to follow them on Twitter, that they are worth your follow because they're doing some amazing things. So this is very exciting. We are going to get started. We've got the thought, we've got the recommendation, and of course, my conversation with Matt Miller and Kasey Bell. Now, speaking of Kasey Bell from Shake Up Learning and also the Google Teacher Tribe podcast, Kasey this summer is opening up a number of her courses for you to get involved with that relate to getting Google certified. And summer is the perfect time to work on your Google certification goals. Kasey is, of course, your go-to Google certification expert. Becoming a Google certified educator can be intimidating, but you'd be working with Kasey. And the content can be overwhelming, except you'd be working with Kasey. So through her online self-paced courses, Kasey will walk you through everything you need to know about getting Google certified. On May 28th, Memorial Day, 3 online courses will open for limited enrollment. Let me repeat that. limited enrollment. She's going to be opening up the Google Certified Educator Academy Level 1 course, the Google Certified Educator Academy Level 2, and her course titled the Become a Google Certified Trainer course. Now, these courses are fully loaded with video-based lessons, hands-on learning, with Kasey Bell. But here's the catch. These courses will only be open for enrollment for a limited time. You have to act fast because enrollment will end on June 10th at midnight Central Standard Time because Kasey's in Texas. They will not be opening again until November. So we're here at the end of the school year. Now is the perfect time to get ready for the coming school year, 2018-2019, and get all that googly goodness under your belt and get yourself certified in many of the ways that are available. To learn more about the certifications and the online courses, just head over to chrisnessy.com/getGoogleCertified, and you can find out all about Kasey's courses. And you want to do that on May 28th and before June 10th. Thanks for your support for this episode, Kasey. And now, let's talk to you and Matt. Now joining me on the podcast, I have two former guests and two people who I consider awesome friends in the world of education and, of course, podcasting. I am joined by Matt Miller, back from episode 47. I'm also joined tonight by Kasey Bell from Shake Up Learning, back from episode 21. And together, Matt and Kasey co-host the Google Teacher Tribe podcast, which I have talked about more times than you probably have cared to hear me talk about on the House of EdTech, which many say is very well produced. And they join me now here on the House of EdTech. Welcome back, Matt Miller and Kasey Bell.
Thanks, Chris. I have heard that people really want to know the secret to our producing, so we may have to reveal that.
It's kind of like the man behind the curtain.
Yes.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
He's the Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
exactly.
Just let me publicly say thank you for letting me be the person behind the curtain with you guys.
No, we love you, Chris, and we have secret conversations with Chris just as we're recording too. So we have a lot of fun together, and Chris likes to have a lot of fun with throwing in those little outtakes.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes we don't even know they're coming, and they show up, which is always a fun surprise for us.
And that's funny because when we kind of put this all together, 55 episodes ago with you guys, I kind of, with the first episode, thought, oh, there's some really funny stuff here. I'll just throw outtakes at the end of their episodes and we'll see what happens. So you never said stop, so I keep going.
Right. Yes. Thank goodness.
And then I see on Twitter, people are like, oh, there were no outtakes. And then I feel bad because sometimes you guys just aren't as funny outside of the scope of the show.
That is very true. That's true. And sometimes I wonder if people actually really, honestly, deep down in their heart, really listen for the outtakes more than the other stuff.
The dedicated listener does, for sure.
Right. There you go.
It's funny because, Chris, you were the one who really encouraged us to have a little bit of banter, to have some fun and let people really get to know us. At first we were really like, let's get down to business. And that really shifted, I think, the way people were connecting with us. I mean, somebody said to me the other day, like, I feel like we're really good friends because I listen to you every Monday. Like they feel like they know us because they hear our voices and how different that is and how powerful that is about podcasting in general. But, also sort of finding that fine line between, letting people see sort of a little bit more of your personality and giving them, the professional side of it as well.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on that, I think there really is something about listening to someone's voice. I mean, just the fact that, their voice is in your earbuds, in your ear, that's just a very personal thing. And I think I underestimated when we started this, I underestimated the power of that. I was just on a phone call with somebody just a couple of days ago, and they were talking about how they listened to every episode of the podcast and they loved it. And I stopped for a second and I said, is it weird to you to hear me on this phone call with you right now? And she said, oh my gosh, it is so weird. And I said, I know, because I'm the same way with my favorite podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis. And I listen to them and I'm going, oh, this is so weird to actually be having a conversation, like having all three of us in a conversation right now. And I hear Chris's voice because I've listened to the House of EdTech for years and years, and having all three of us together, it's a little bit weird.
So I think I am your number one listener because obviously since I'm editing the show,
you have to be.
I listen to it at multiple speeds. I listen a little quicker to kind of do a quick edit, and then I will go back at a little bit faster than 1x and, do a fine tooth and comb edit on the episodes. And then, I'll be done with it and I'll post it and everything. And then when it comes out on Monday mornings, I am also one of your Monday morning listeners in my car. So
that's cool. Didn't realize that.
I listen to edit and then I listen just as a listener.
Do you listen to it critically of your own work?
Oh no, the work is phenomenal. So there's no criticism.
Right. There's nothing to think about there.
I didn't mean it that way, but I mean, like the way I would listen to the way when I edit videos, and I'll be like, oh, I wanted to do this. I wish I could go, that kind of thing.
Nah, that's the beauty of audio. Audio is so much easier to edit than video, and there's no pressure on me. You guys bring all the material, so that's the awesome part.
You just have to edit out when I say weird stuff.
Which doesn't happen as often as you might think. But that's not to say that I don't have a folder that's titled Weird Stuff That Kasey Said. It's not like it's gig upon gig of data.
I definitely need a copy of that folder.
Not yet. It's not a gig yet. We're only, 55 episodes in?
All right. I'm going to pretend I'm the host of this show, and I'm going to try and wrangle this all back together. I would say that covers what I wanted to hit last, which is kind of like, the podcasting, but I guess maybe we'll come back to the benefits. But obviously, both of you are, I guess, Uber or Lyft fans of Google. So why don't we start there? And we're going to let Kasey, the lady, go first. Kasey, if you could share a little bit about how in your career and why in your career you gravitated towards and have really latched onto the Google sphere.
I will say that my experience with Google, first of all, it was like a breath of fresh air. The first time I jumped into, actually, I went back to Writely. I don't know if anybody remembers Writely, which was acquired by Google and became Google Docs. And I was using that back in grad school. So I'm going to age myself here, but it was like, this is a no-brainer. Why isn't everything working like this? And the more that I dug my heels in and learned how to use it, and the more I realized this was the way to get teachers interested in tech in their classrooms, because it had to be easy. It had to be something that was seamless. They didn't have to remember 20 million different logins to use all the tools. And so that's why I refer to it as a gateway tool, because it's a good first step. It's not the only tool, although people probably think that's what we think because we talk so much about Google, but that's not what we believe. But it's such a powerful tool, and it has totally transformed education. I really believe that, because it is so widespread. It's more of who hasn't gone Google at this point than who has. And, these tools are they're free and you have unlimited storage. Why wouldn't you jump on board with this? The way that we can create and reach all of those 4 C's in the classroom, it's just a great tool, but it's also simple enough that teachers who just begin at the substitution level can easily start using it.
Well, there are those technology directors who still want to throw money at Microsoft and get Office 365 for their districts.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty that have both, that are still running both. I will not go off on that soapbox there.
All right, we'll keep the soapbox away for future topics. Matt, for you, why did you go Google back in the day?
I was one of those teachers that went rogue with Google, because when I first started learning about it and the potential in the classroom and everything, we did not have access to, what was Google Apps for Education, now is G Suite for Education. And I started seeing some of the cool things that teachers were doing with it on social media and at conferences and different things like that. And I just knew that it had to be a part of my class. And being a high school Spanish teacher, it's the foreign language teachers, for whatever reason, There are some that definitely do, but there's a lot of us that don't get into technology that much. And I just started to see the potential in letting kids create, especially create within the language, doing stuff in slides and in Google Drawings and, writing in docs and then using the commenting features and everything. And so when I say that I went rogue, it was that we didn't officially have Google Apps for Education. So I would create a doc and I would make a share link for it and then get all of the students into one file. Or I'd make I had all of these weird little hacks. Like I would make 25 files for my 25 students and I would give them each a share link so that they could get in, even though they didn't have an official account through the school. And just the fact that I was willing to go to those crazy, those crazy lengths to get Google tools in the hands of my students showed that, I really, really saw the potential of it. And then eventually we got to the point where we were an official Google Apps for Education school. I got a cart of Chromebooks in my classroom and oh my goodness, it changed everything. And after having access to those Chromebooks and to Google, many times since then, I've thought, if I was put in a situation where I had to go back in the classroom and not have access to all that stuff, could I do it? And what would that even look like? And I don't even have a good answer to that. I think it's just had that much power.
We know you wouldn't be pulling your hair out if
Oh, never heard that one before.
Hey, again, 110 episodes. I never said the jokes were going to be good. But you talk about, when you guys, and Matt, I really like the way you put it as going rogue. And that really resonated with me because I too went rogue with Google. And I guess 2008, I had my first job outside of student teaching where I got a long-term sub gig in a middle school doing social studies. And there was no Google for Education then, but I too saw the power of, Google Docs and Gmail. And I had 8th graders. We went to the computer lab and I had them all sign up for Gmail accounts. So they were all on Google, and I made up like my own permission slip and, sent it home and, got parents to sign and create the passwords. And I let me know if you guys agree. Getting 20 or 25 people in the same room to do something with technology is such a pain and very difficult.
Especially in 2008, It probably was.
Those big CRT monitors. But I'm right with you guys as far as, I too saw the value and knew that it would be good for kids, good for learning, and obviously good for education. So there you go. So obviously you guys are super fans of Google, and, as a wise gal I know from down south would say, we are all super excited about Google. Hashtag super excited. Obviously you guys have your go-to and your favorites. And for anybody who doesn't also listen to the Google Teacher Tribe podcast, where you will wax poetic about the things you love about Google, can you just quickly share here what your favorite Google tool or service is? And again, ladies always go first.
I have a feeling we may actually say the same thing. So
we'll see.
My favorite has to be, at this point, Google Slides, just because it is so versatile and we end up talking about it all the time. And whenever a teacher comes to me with, hey, what happened? Google can do this, this, and this. I'm like, slides, and slides. Yeah, here you can do this and do that. And so, it started referring to it as this Swiss Army knife of the G Suite tools, because it's just so versatile. It does so much more than just be a presentation tool. And it's a great creation tool. It's so much more flexible than Docs. And, I even typically prefer it over drawings most of the time. So, I think it's a great tool for the classroom. Now, is it the most, coolest, the most jaw-dropping, trendiest thing? No. But I think it's a tried and true tool that we can use in our classroom tomorrow. Which
is a huge plus here on this show. Here today, use it tomorrow. And I don't know anybody who's not ever had an experience with Google Slides. But I will say this before Matt shares his thoughts. That's not what I thought you were going to say. I'll hold that till the end, though.
Uh-oh.
I bet I know what he was thinking of, and it's another fun analogy that we have about Google tools. I bet that's what he thought it was going to be. But again, we'll hold off and see. So for me, yeah, I could very easily jump in there with Google Slides. First of all, I knew Kasey was going to say that. I was pretty sure anyway. Ben, the thing that before I reveal what mine is, since it obviously can't be Google Slides now, I will say really fast.
Nobody said that.
Well, I guess that's true.
Put a
that's
limitation on it. He said you're.
I'm making up rules against myself on my own. Yeah. But I will say real quick about slides that one of the things that I love about it is that kids can get, and adults too, of course, but can get a familiarity with this tool and get real comfortable with it and know where all of the different functions are of it and know the little cool tricks, and you can use it in so many different ways. This is, one big thing that I'm kind of on a kick on right now is that we don't need lots and lots of digital tools in our classroom. If we can find a way to do what we want to do with a smaller amount of them and just have a couple of core ones, then, and if they're versatile, then now we're spending less time teaching tech and having kids go through that learning curve of picking up a new digital tool. And that's one of the things I love about Google Slides is that there are so many different things that you can do with it. So yeah, that's definitely right up there. And if the rule existed and I wasn't able to pick Google Slides, then it almost feels like cheating if I picked Google Drawings because Drawings is so similar to Slides. So again, I'm making more rules for myself. I'm going to go with Hangouts. My love for video calls is well documented on my blog and my presentations. I gush about them whenever I get the opportunity to. And I just think that the potential that we have to bring virtual guests into our classroom, to go on these virtual field trips, to get connected to another class that's similar to ours in a different state or in a different country. Those are some of those real life connections that make that emotional attachment that kids have to content or to certain places in the world. They create those experiences that kids are going to remember because it's tied to real people. And so often, all we've really got to do to make that happen is just reach out and ask somebody, hey, will you do a video call with my class? And I think so often teachers, it's like they know that it's out there, but they don't make the crossover. They don't make the connection to the classroom because we use video calls in our classroom, in our real lives all the time. We'll FaceTime a friend or we'll, Skype somebody in another state, but we don't think about it in the classroom. But I think of all of the stuff that's out there, I think that there is enormous, enormous potential in doing video calls, and Hangouts is right up there.
I also am a fan of Google Hangouts, but if I had made my predictions out loud, I would be 0 for 2 right now on what you guys were going to share.
Yeah. Okay. So what were your predictions?
I really thought, and maybe if I asked a different question about your favorite tool, so I think I would have gotten the answers I thought I was going to get if I had said, what is your favorite Google tool for personal use? And then I think you both would have talked about Google Keep. So I have failed.
Yeah. I figured that you were counting on Google Keep from one of us, which of course is not the Swiss Army knife of Google. It is the
Instant Pot.
There it is. That's right. We have the Swiss Army knife. We have
I've got a whole dictionary now of Google Teacher Tribe isms.
Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of them. That's for certain.
Hey,
maybe that could be a future episode where Kasey just goes through the Google Teacher Tribe legend of lingo.
Yeah, it's unabridged.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Oh my goodness.
So I mean, what you guys shared, obviously phenomenal tools. I really agree with you about lack of people really utilizing something like Google Hangouts. I know Mystery Skype is a big thing and there are, websites dedicated to it. But definitely any platform that's going to be able to bring people who you couldn't normally get in front of your students or even your teachers, through faculty meetings, is certainly a valuable tool. I had 2 more questions that I could ask you guys about Googly stuff. but I will choose one. And the one that I will choose is, what is a Google tool that is not a part of G Suite that you think would be really well incorporated into the G Suite family and would be really good for education that right now isn't really intended for education, but could certainly lend itself by becoming a part of the suite, let's say?
I think that list could be very long. There are so many tools, especially when you get into the lesser known tools. And in fact, I was recording a lesson today on Google Arts and Culture. And even though it's not technically part of G Suite for Education, it's not a core service, it's a fantastic way to learn about history, art, about all of the, places around the world. There's something in there that you can connect to just about any subject area in any grade level. And in fact, today, I think every time I go in there, it's gotten an update. And Matt and I have almost made a game out of seeing if there's an update or something to share from Arts and Culture in almost every episode. And so they have, like these art camera options where you can view artwork in this, incredibly high resolution down to the cracks in the paint, the types of things that if you were in the museum, if you were in the d'Orsay looking at a Monet, painting, they wouldn't let you stand that close to it. These are types of experiences, that many students are never going to actually get to travel to the Taj Mahal. And there's a 360 tour inside Google Arts and Culture. Now you can view it on the desktop, or if you've got like Google Cardboard or something else, you can make that a fully immersive virtual reality tour. And I just feel like it's really a powerful tool, and a lot of teachers don't even know about it.
Luckily, as a social studies teacher, I'm aware of it. So I've been able to certainly provide that experience to my students on the Chromebooks. But again, if you're teaching a world language or, even math or science, to certainly, again, see these places and go there virtually. And again, I love what you say about you can get closer on the computer than you could actually get if you were standing right in front of said painting or sculpture or landmark. So definitely thumbs up for me on the Google Arts and Culture. Matt, what do you got?
I am willing to admit my lack of knowledge of exactly what is and isn't in the core stuff. So you guys can feel free to correct me on this if you'd like. But I think one of the biggest things that I always love to go back to is definitely maps. Does maps fit in? You go ahead and correct me now if you'd like to.
No, it is. My Maps is part of
my map. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. See, I was just talking about regular old,
like the
maps.
paper ones.
No. I'm talking about Google Maps.
The way we get around, the way Kasey gets around is what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so even if this one is part of the core suite, then I'm still going to talk about it just because I still think that the potential out there for specifically for using the Street View features of that's always, whenever I do trainings on Google tools, I almost always start with this because I think it's a quick win for teachers that don't know about it. And the ones that do know about it, you start to see some of the places that you didn't realize were out there. And I mean, with Street View, the ability to drop the little yellow peg man down someplace and look at it in full panorama and feel like you're actually there. I'm real big on the idea of experience, and it makes me think of, like whenever you were on a great vacation and you were boots on the ground in that location and you start looking around, and all of a sudden, because you are immersed in the middle of it, now you have a different appreciation for it. And obviously, nothing beats being in a location in person, but I think this is a pretty good substitute. And I think it's something that crosses over so many different curricular areas and grade levels. And I think it's something that sometimes people just don't realize it's there, or if they do, they don't make the connection to how it can be used in the classroom.
And all of these tools overlap quite a bit. In fact, what I was just talking about and sharing in arts and culture, some of those are actually street views that connect in. It's like Google is semi-incestuous in the way that everything works together in a good way. I probably shouldn't have said that, but I did. So anyway, I wanted to add to that because I do love Street View. And like I said, the connections between arts and culture, Google Expeditions as well. And a lot of those are connections back to Street View. And now we have the ability to create expeditions and to create these 360 experiences. So I just wanted to put this out there in case people don't know. If you download the Street View app on your phone, you can create and add your own street views into their database. So it's had several iterations and been parts of different types of apps. But now, at the present moment, it is part of the Street View app. And what a great way to not only let students experience it, but to tell a story using that as their own tool as well.
And that part that you shared right there is something that I've done, contributing, my photos that I've taken to like the map locations. I don't know then if I've specifically done like the Street View contribution. Definitely something where you can get students, again, be someplace they can't actually get to in the moment because they're in a classroom.
Hey, Matt, you know what? I just got a notification this week on they used to be called photospheres. It was like this separate app. And I made a photosphere when we were at the Google Teacher Academy in Austin. And I got some kind of notification that my photosphere had so many views. So you get statistics on it too. But it was like every time I get that, it's like, oh, I totally forgot about that. And of course, like the quality of it compared to even what you can do now, it's pretty laughable in 2014 but yeah, so it was kind of interesting. So it is neat to contribute to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you guys ready to go to our very last part of this conversation?
Oh yeah, we're game. Totally game. Let's do it. I don't even know what it is, but let's do it.
So before I let you guys go, first, thank you both, Matt and Kasey, for taking some time here on a weeknight, a little bit later than normal. So I appreciate you guys taking some time out. But the last thing I'd like to share, or have you guys share, is from each of you, one benefit of being podcast creators. Because, just a few episodes ago, I did a series on how to podcast, and I've been presenting for the last 2 to 3 years about, the power of podcasting and, how to get started and how to do it. But you guys host a show, super popular, provide so much value to the people who listen and send in feedback and are a part of your tribe, which I may have just spoiled some of the benefits. But from each of your perspectives, what has been a benefit of being a content creator in terms of being a podcaster?
I think for me, it's definitely been one of the words of the title that we so very meticulously worked through and picked. And it's definitely got to be that word tribe, and we talk about it on the show a lot.
Funny. I thought the important word was going to be Google, but okay. I like tribe as well.
Yeah. Surprise. So, no, it's definitely the tribe. I think, Kasey and I have learned, and I think I can speak for her on this. We've learned so much from our tribe. Actually, we read the book Tribes by Seth Godin. It had a big influence on us. I was just talking about this with Don Wettrick on his podcast about how, Seth Godin says that there are these certain elements that you've got to have with tribes, and one of them has to be a leader. And he basically says, a lot of times there are people out there saying, we're waiting for you to lead us. And I don't know how much Kasey and I actually lead, so to speak, because, we're right in this learning with everybody, but we're the ones who do get the distinct honor and privilege of holding the mic and talking and being goofballs with each other, and people listen to it, that we get to hear from them and we get to hear their questions and their ideas and their success stories. It's one of our favorite things, I think, whenever we hear or we see a tweet and someone has used something from the show that week in their classroom. And I mean, that right there totally makes it. So for me, it definitely goes back to the tribe.
And of course, I totally agree with that. And in fact, sometimes it's the next day. It's even like the next day that they're doing something in the classroom. And it just totally blows my mind that we could have that kind of impact on what's going on in someone's classroom. And the fact that the tribe has become such a fabulous group of teachers and educators who are collaborating and sharing. And as Matt said, it's not us, we're out there just sort of facilitating the entire event, and we find, what's new and we share our ideas. But, my favorite part of the show is the mailbag. And that's when we get stumped by questions, and sometimes that means we have to go learn something new. And sometimes that means we just put it back out to the tribe because we know somebody out there can help. And that's the power of being a connected educator as well. But I also want to come back just to the original question and the power of podcasting and sort of what we've learned through the entire experience for me. And I think Matt would agree because we've had a lot of conversations about it. But when I first started blogging, I've told this story a lot, but I would start a blog and never finish it because I was so afraid to put myself out there. And I put it off for years. And finally, when I decided to do it because I felt like I was teaching teachers and I needed to be the example. If I'm telling them to blog, I needed to be the one that was willing to do it. And so my first post was a perfectionist with paralysis because it's truly how I felt. I thought everything needed to look just like amazing. And it had to look like I had been running a blog for 5 years with only one post. And that's just not going to happen. And that's just something that I learned along the way is that the community of educators out there is so supportive and forgiving. I felt a little bit that way about the podcast as well. Is anybody going to listen? Why do they want to hear my annoying voice? So as we built it, and suddenly, seen the power of it, the power of connecting and the power of audio as I am an auditory learner. And so podcasting is really big for me, but I'm usually in the minority in that. But so many teachers still find ways to use it and to connect with it. And I think we've had several sort of spinoffs of followers of the tribe who have decided to jump into podcasting. Because we've talked about it so much and because they're beginning to see that and beginning to podcast with their students. And that was something that I did years and years ago and had my students create a podcast. And I don't think I actually said a word in it, but they named it after me, misspells Chime Time. And it was just, an amazing experience. And the kids couldn't wait to do it again. They were being those creators and they were able to be not only a creator, but to have some freedom in it too. They had a lot of choice in the matter. And so I think sort of putting the other twist on this and not just the professional learning aspect is how easy this is now to implement in the classroom as another medium for our students.
I couldn't put it any better myself. And I'm glad that you guys are having really the same experience, that I'm having. And then, again, from when we first connected to make Google Teacher Tribe happen, it's been wonderful to see you guys grow and improve in ways you don't even know. And to at least be aware of the fact that you're making an impact. And you were doing that with your blogs, and like Matt with the book and now Kasey with the book. But I'm with you. I mean, podcasting is so powerful. So stepping outside of the guy who edits your show and supports you guys that way. Just as a fan, thank you for putting out the content and providing so much value through the Google Teacher Tribe podcast. So many tips, so much value.
Well, I've got to say, for me, it's our distinct pleasure to be able to do this. And I'm always amazed at the number of people that want to talk about the podcast. And I know, and I think I speak for Kasey too, that we really feel like we've gotten to be a part of something pretty cool and pretty special. And we don't have any plans of cutting it off anytime soon. It's really one of my favorite things to do.
Yes. I mean, it truly is a blessing to be in this seat, to be able to, to collaborate with each other and to make those connections. And this is part of our learning as well. You know, we've learned so much, not just about podcasting, but I know I've learned so much from the tribe and from you, Chris, as well. And thank you for what you do and what you bring to the podcast as well, because you are a member of this team, even if it is behind the curtain.
It's my pleasure to be behind the curtain. People who listen to this show, again, they should know who you guys are. If they don't, again, make sure you guys hit up ditchthattextbook.com for all of Matt's content, and make sure you go to shakeuplearning.com for all of Kasey's content. And of course, if you're not subscribed already, make sure you head over to googleteachertribe.com, click that subscribe button, and add it to your podcast catcher yesterday, because again, the content is awesome. It's there every week. And before we let you guys go, how can people, aside from your websites, what's the best way that people can connect with you who now feel that they know you even a little bit better?
You can connect with me in whatever flavor you want to. If you want to tweet me, you want to email me, you want to Instagram me, I'm pretty much Shake Up Learning across all of social media. You can reach me that way. And I also have a contact form and all kinds of other ways that you can reach out to me on shakeuplearning.com.
Yeah. And for me, you know, I'm on Twitter all the time. So I'm at @JMattMiller. That's the letter J, Matt with 2 T's, Miller, and the Ditch Book hashtag. And then, yeah, ditchthattextbook.com is the best place to keep up with me and all of my educational shenanigans.
All right. So, hey, thanks again, guys. I really appreciate you guys taking time. And hey, of course, you were on once, you're on again, which means I'll just have to come back to you guys, of course, in the future. And you guys are welcome here anytime in the House of EdTech. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
That was certainly a fun conversation with Matt and Kasey. And, you know, I can't thank them enough for, one, you know, coming on the show the first times that they came on. And obviously now, you know, reconnecting because of those relationships to be a part of the Google Teacher Tribe podcast. As we said, I'm the man behind the curtain. So with that being said, let's move into my EdTech thought for this episode. And I want to talk just briefly about making the most of your professional development. I'm making the most of my PD by doing this very podcast. That alone, the conversations I have, the research that goes into this, is a lot of professional development that I think I get. You know, again, the topics I cover, the tools I recommend, doing this podcast for now in the 5th year, being over 100 episodes, that's a lot of content, a lot of conversations. And I want to know how you are making the most of your professional development. What are you actually doing with it? How are you growing as an educator? Whether you're attending ed camps or you're going to paid conferences, what are you doing with what you're learning? How is it translating and coming into the classroom and truly benefiting your colleagues, your administrators? More importantly, how is our learning benefiting the students? I know this year for me, again, working in a 9th grade social studies classroom, that a lot of what I do with technology, I'm bringing into my classroom and putting in front of my students. And I am challenging them to learn video editing and website design and communicating and collaborating, you know, with Google Docs and a variety of other tools, and getting up and presenting. Similar to how I sit here and I present this content to you, I want to build those skills in my students. And I'm focused on skills with my students. The content, well, in my classroom, it's not about the history. It's about the skills and what they're going to need when they go forward. Because, I'll put it here, a 9th grader may not be able to be the best judge of, do I love history and do I want to get totally engrossed in history? They might, and there could be a select few out there. And I'll support that. But for a lot of my students, they just want to get through the class and move on. That's my goal. Get them through the class, help them to move on. Not get caught up in a cycle of staying back or having any issues where they're not where they need to be. By the PD that I get, I'm giving them the soft skills, the hard skills of what could be valuable in other classes, and I'm using social studies as a vehicle to do that. But again, based on the PD I'm getting to make myself better and learn about education and certain new aspects of pedagogy, I'm bringing that right to my students. And I explain to them a lot of the things that I do, the conferences I attend, what I'm learning, what I'm reading. And I'm excited to do that because I'm passionate to talk about learning. And I've had a number of students, their eyes light up and they're curious. They'll follow up with me and ask me, Mr. Nesi, how was that conference you went to? What do you mean you go to a conference? And they want to know like what EdCamp is. So that's exciting to see because I'm trying to create lifelong learners, students who, when they leave me, they're better citizens and they can go off and know how they learn and how to learn and get answers to questions and be curious. So I would love to know, how are you bringing your PD into your classrooms and your schools and your districts? Obviously, you can go to chrisnesi.com/feedback and you can leave a SpeakPipe message or connect with me on Twitter, or you can go to the show notes for this episode at chrisnesi.com/110 and leave a comment on the show notes. And I would love to know how you're making the most of your professional development. And that's my EdTech thought. And now it's time for this episode's House of EdTech recommendation. And we're going to keep with the very googly theme here in this crossover episode. And I want to talk very quickly about the Google VR Tour Creator. The Google VR Tour Creator is a free tool that lets everyone create their own virtual tours to view in Google Cardboard and or in the Chrome browser. Tours are created by selecting locations in Google Maps and then selecting 360-degree street view imagery. There's also an option to upload your own 360-degree imagery. Now, Richard Byrne of freetechforteachers.com, a recent guest here on the podcast, he recently wrote a post about this, and in his post, he also posted a video demonstrating how this new tool actually works. And I will post a link to his post in the show notes for this episode, again, out at chrisnesi.com/110. And if you want to check out the Google VR Tour Creator directly, you can go to vr.google.com/tour creator. And of course, I will link to that in the show notes. So if you're creating expeditions now or virtual tours for your students, I would love to hear about it. Make sure you share it and make sure you share that with everybody else in the methods that you prefer to share it, whether it's social media, your website, your blog, your podcast. Share it out and let's make education a whole lot better. And that's my EdTech recommendation. And no episode of the House of EdTech is complete without a House of EdTech VIP. Congratulations to Mandy Bush. Mandy is an 8th grade language arts teacher in Texas, and she's been teaching middle school for 12 years. She's taught 6th through 8th grade, but she loves teaching 8th grade the best. She has 2 daughters. She's married. She's got dogs, cats. She's an amazing person. She also knits in her free time, and when she needs time to relax from teaching and toddler madness. She shares her ideas about teaching in the middle grades on her blog, which can be found at lifewithamiddleschooler.blogspot.com. And of course, you need to connect with Mandy on Twitter. She is at Mrs. Bush LA, and that's MRSBUSHLA. And I'll link to her blog out in the show notes for this episode. Make sure you connect with Mandy. And congratulations, Mandy. You are a House of EdTech VIP. Thank you again for checking out this episode of the House of EdTech podcast, a special crossover with the Google Teacher Tribe podcast. So thank you again to Matt Miller and Kasey Bell. And thank you again to Kasey Bell for supporting this episode. Make sure you go and check out her online courses. Again, the link to that between May 28th and June 10th is chrisnesi.com/online www.get.google-certified. You enjoyed what we talked about in this episode? Hey, as we do with every episode, I encourage you to keep the conversation going. I would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on the information and resources shared in this and every episode. For this one, go over to chrisnessy.com/110. That's 110. Or you can send me a message by going to chrisnessy.com/feedback. Now, if you enjoy the podcast, and this is the first time you've heard it, hopefully I have earned your subscription. That would be awesome. Now, the other thing you can do if you enjoy the podcast, besides subscribing to it, if you're already subscribed, tell somebody else about the House of EdTech. Share it on social media, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, whatever the case may be. Share it, use the hashtag House of EdTech, tag it at House of EdTech on Twitter and also Instagram. The other thing you can do is you can also become an awesome supporter. So many thanks to my awesome supporters who I will thank right now. So thank you very much for all your support. Eric Kurtz from ControlAltAchieve.com, Dan Gallagher, Peggy George from Classroom 2.0 Live, Jen Giffen from the Shooks and GIF podcast, which you can find at bit.ly/ShooksandGIF, Mark Grindell, Jeff Herb from InstructionalTechTalk.com, Mike Messner from California, JP Prezavento from jpprez.com, Scott Titmus from right here in New Jersey, and Brent Warner from the EdTech.tv podcast. Now, if you're interested in supporting this show, you can go to chrisnessy.com/awesome. As we wrap things up here in the next 55 seconds, I just want to share that on the next episode of Podcast PD, another podcast that I co-host with Stacey Lindis and AJ Bianco, on episode 30, we're going to be speaking with the newest pirate author, New Jersey Principal Jay Billy, about the release of his new book, Lead with Culture, What Really Matters in Our Schools. As for this podcast, the next episode of the House of EdTech, number 111, will be released on June 3rd, 2018. Until next time, hey, thanks for learning with me. And remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.
I'm sure it's pretty weird to just blurt out, we should be behind the curtain.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Huh? What are you saying? Okay.
There's a curtain? Yes.
A crossover is not a crossover unless I don't actually use the sound effect, so that's what we just there. So, one, thank you guys for giving me some time here before... Start that again. Yeah, there are no outtakes at the end of my show. Maybe I'll have to do it in honor of you guys.
We're going to change that.
Yep, I think so.
Hey, everybody. I'm still here. So I just want to say, let's play a little game. If you hear this, what I'd like you to do is go out to Twitter. So you have to be on Twitter. Tag me at Mr. Nessy, MRNESI, and use the lightning emoji. Send me your message. It's like a secret code. Let's see if you get this. See you next time.